what's happening right now is that there's a heightened level of suspicion amongst the political players there. Anything they see is flagged immediately. For example, I'm told a couple of minutes ago, one side of the political agents of our presidential candidate there raised concerns about an IEBC official who they deemed as suspicious. Yeah. Police actually intervened and took that official away for questioning. But the question now is, anything deemed as suspicious is acted upon. The matter is escalated immediately.
This is almost what Francis Gashuru was saying earlier on, that initially there was demands for lasers to just prove that the forms that are there are the legitimate ones. Then this is also coming just a few moments after there were direct instructions that only the returning officers, officials, and the agents, official agents and the deputy agents, plus maybe one assistant, should be allowed around that region, and observers plus the media. So it's not very clear who is being ejected or even why, but there seems to be a bit of a fracas there involving the police, in as much as we know that 265 returning officers are already at the Bomas of Kenya. Let's listen into what's going on there.
I want to announce to the nation that Bomas of Kenya is a scene of crime.
Somebody has just made their way to the dais there. And this is what the IEBC was talking about yesterday, Wahiga and Trevor, when they said that security personnel would be deployed and even more police officers would be stationed there if need be. And these are some of the occurrences, perhaps, that would then essentially make security a very critical component in terms of their visibility there, their availability there, just to curb such situations. That gentleman there, we're yet to establish who exactly that was, has just made his way across the central part of the auditorium and made what seemed to be an announcement.
An allegation, to be more specific. And Francis Wanderi, one of the IBC commissioners, was on hand to quickly move that gentleman away from the mic, and security also quickly, jumped in to take control of the situation. It's very worrying because only official announcements are supposed to come from that platform, not just any, for lack of a better word, Tom, Dick, and Harry can just make their way up there and address those present and the millions watching across various TV stations. But Trevor, you remember earlier on, Professor Abdi Yakub Gulie making that announcement of changing access to the Bomas of Kenya. Now you see why it was important. Only chief agents, deputy chief agents, and IBC clerks are allowed there. But as I look at the setting in this room, Trevor, it still feels like there are more people there than should be present. And Roslyn,
it seems there wasn't much movement there,
affirming that she's seeing a lot more people there today than when were you last there?
Are they even more than when?
This afternoon, but I think the crowds pick up in the evening.
So it seems that most of them have not been kicked out, as was mentioned earlier on, because at the time when there were 265 returning officers there, and so far only 141 had been processed, some of the returning officers having stayed there for more than 3 days. The Chebukati mentioned that the returning officers on the queue shall proceed and also be processed through, but he said that the Bomas of Kenya will only have make access to agents, deputy chief agents, and nobody else should access Bomas.
And if you notice,
but earlier on, Dr. Dide was saying that the politicians make their way all through observers and the media only.
Yes.
Lillian?
And we've just received information from the Bomas of Kenya that that allegation that we just heard, or an attempt at that allegation, was made by Saitabao Olekanchori. He is chief agent We are at the Raila Odinga camp, and we are going to establish exactly why that happened and why he found it necessary.
Tempers are still flaring there. That is still Millie Mabona there. It's just pointing fingers, and maybe we could listen in as we find Francis Gashuri to see what's going on there and get an update. But there's a lot of tempers just flaring at the Bomas of Kenya, where the Form 34As are still being verified. But
I hadn't actually noticed that. Indeed, that was Saitabao. He looked different. We see him in suits, and he was here on JKL just the other day. So that, actually, now come to think of it, that was probably him, chief agent for the Azimio team. But of course, I think there are different ways to share some of your concerns as opposed to going up on stage. And you can definitely see the concerns there. But Trevor,